Good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be our Sum of Your Markets episode 124. Obviously, we don't have a stock market open tomorrow because of the holiday, but we are going to release this video on Sunday as we always do. So hopefully you guys enjoy your little break from the holiday. But obviously the stock market will open on Tuesday. So just know that ES will be open tomorrow, but the stock market, the regular stocks, will not. Okay? So looking at the calendar for next week, this is what we have going on. So we have nothing on Monday, obviously, because of the holiday. Tuesday, we don't really have a whole lot. We only have the factory orders. And then we get all the economic numbers coming out on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So Wednesday, we have the JOLTS job openings. We have PMI. We also have the ISM PMI. But the thing that you really want to keep an eye on is the meeting minutes on the FOMC. So this is not a regular meeting. This is just a minutes. The regular meeting is actually in a couple of weeks. It's going to be at the end of July, so make sure you watch out for that. But the minutes do move the market just as much. I wouldn't say just as much, but fairly close to the regular meeting for the FOMC. Okay, so keep an eye on that at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. That should dictate which direction the market will be moving for this week and next week. And then moving on to Thursday, we have a couple of smaller things happening, but the big thing is the employment change on 8:15 on Thursday, and then we have the unemployment at 8:30 on Thursday. A couple of smaller things on the 10:30 to 11 o'clock as well. But the main thing you want to watch is this natural gas number, because the last natural gas number that we had come out last week, if we go back here, we had natural gas storage come out at 82 billion when they were expecting 70 billion. So a massive increase from what they were expecting. And if you guys were live trading that, there was a massive buyer that came in. I think it was around 7,500 to 10,000 contracts that were coming in around that print. So somebody is trading that natural gas news. So make sure you keep an eye on the natural gas this week at 10:30 on Thursday. We also have a couple of Fed talks on Thursday, a couple at 1 p.m. So we have Bullard and Waller talking. And then on Friday, we have the hourly earnings, some more unemployment and employment numbers. Obviously, the first week of the month, you have all those employment numbers coming out. And then the second week, you have the inflation data. Okay? So let's talk about the price action here. So first off, let's talk about the value. So if we look at the value on last week, going from Thursday to Friday, we had a pretty much a strong balance, but we did try to break out of balance. So you can see here, if we look at the two value area highs, they are almost identical, and the value area lows are almost identical. So we have a very strong balance around this, 3790 to 3780 area, but we did try to break that on that Friday push. So you can see here, towards the close on Friday, we were breaking the highs of Thursday and almost Wednesday. Okay. So moving forward, if we take a look at the daily, we can see that we have almost an engulfing candle coming in here. If we can break above Wednesday's high, which was that little micro pullback doji, the high would be around 3840. There really is not much stopping us from reclaiming this candle on June 28th. Okay, so we go back to the 30-minute here. We can look at where the value actually is on that candle. So if we look at where the value low is, the value area low would be here, and the value area high would be here. So these would be the targets moving forward if we can maintain above that value area low, which if we delete this older level here, we can see that we are holding above that value area low, and we just need to hold above 3825, which was that massive absorption level. If you guys remember from last week and the week before, there is a big buyer accumulating on that 3825 level. So if we can reclaim that level, then if that buyer is still holding, he is most likely going to continue to protect his position and push us up to maybe 3850 to around that 3900 value area high. So we could mark out the POC, but really don't need to, because the POC is right there around that value area low. But what we can do is, if we zoom into this value here, we can find out where the POCs are of these other nodes. So we have kind of a node right here, and we have another node right here as well. And then we have pretty much an LVN zone for the rest of the highs there. So moving forward, this week, we want to see a strong hold above 38.25, and then the first resistance slash targets would be that 38.48 and 38.63. If we do start holding above that 63, there really is nothing stopping you from getting all the way to 38.97 towards that upper buying tail. Okay. Now, if we start to hold back below that 38.25, then we are most likely going to continue to balance in that same area that we are balancing out for Thursday and Friday. So mainly around that 37.80 to 37.90 POC node. Okay. So look for balance if we do start to fail that 38.25 absorption. Okay. Now, one more thing I wanted to note before we move on to Nasdaq here is we can look at some key areas from Friday and Thursday. So if we look at this area right here, you can see all these wicks in that same area, basically from 38.06 to 38.17. You had a lot of resistance, kind of a seller absorption there. And then we had a little bit of a struggle, but we finally flipped that level moving forward. So on a scalping basis, if we open up on Monday and today as well, and we hold above this level here, then on the cash session on Tuesday, we should be fairly bullish if we can break above this massive absorption at 38.40. If you guys remember, let's see what day that was on. I think that was on last Wednesday. Yeah, the day right here, June 29th, there was a massive absorption level around that 38.40, and he actually caused the high of the day, and he caused this massive sell-off going down, what, about 100 points? Almost exactly 100 points from that absorption. So if we can break above that iceberg, then there's, once again, really nothing stopping us from reclaiming that value on that, what day was that? June 28th, okay? So the main key area to watch if you are a scalper is around that 38.10. But all right, let's move on to Nasdaq here. So basically the same thing for Nasdaq. You had a lot of balance around the lower levels here, around 11.5 and then 11.520. We did try to break above those highs into Friday's close, but Nasdaq actually looks like it's still kind of maintaining that downtrend, putting in those lower highs. You did have a higher low be created on Friday, but you were not able to break the high of Thursday. Okay, so a little bit of weakness there on that push. But if it can break above the Thursday high on Tuesday, around 11,700, then we should be looking for a value retrace of this big day here, which would be basically the same as we talked about on ES. So hold above that 11,660, you should be getting that 11,960. We do have a little bit of volume resistance kind of in the middle here. So if you did want to mark out some of these high volume nodes, then you could do so. But basically just understand that anywhere around 11,750, you're going to have some volume resistance. If we do start breaking above that, there's really nothing to stop you from fully retracing that value. Now, if we can't hold above that 11,660 going into Tuesday, then we are most likely going to continue to balance down here around that 11.5. If we start breaking below 11.5, then we have these lower accumulation levels to target around 11,370 and then 11,270. Okay. All right, moving on to Bitcoin here. If we look at Bitcoin, you are still currently testing these lower nodes. So these lower nodes that are around 19.2 and 17.8, they're still acting as a buy zone here. You had a little bit of a tweezer bottom, pushed up into a bear flag, and then you lost buyers and kind of pulled back to value. So now that we are retesting value around that 19.2, you can see the buyers are starting to step in again. You're causing some dojis here. You're getting a little bit of buy pressure on those lows. Now, if we can start to break back above 19.9, then we should be retracing this value on this sell-off. Now, one thing we could do, and let me get rid of some of these older levels here so it's not clogging up the chart. But what we could do is we could go to a lower time frame here, and we could take a look at where the majority of the value is on this little seller impulse here. So let's get rid of this pre-market here because we don't need that on Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and grab a volume profile from this day right here because this is the day that caused the top of that impulse. So we're going to start here and we're going to draw it all the way out to here. And we're going to find where most of the value is being found. So The majority of the value would be on this node here. And then we have this node right here. And then if we wanted to, we can mark out the value area high as well. So basically, we can get rid of this now, and we can go back to a daily. We can say, it's actually kind of hard to see on a daily. Let's go back to a 30-minute. We can say that if we break above this 19.2, you really want to watch out for that 19.9, but the main value levels above that would be 20,000, 20.2, and 20.6. So if you were a buyer down here, your main target would be that value area high around 20.6, because that would be the value area high of this bearish impulse. Okay. Now, if you're a Fibonacci trader, you could take a Fibonacci as well. So if you wanted to look at that really quickly, you would just go ahead and grab the high and then grab the low. And funny enough, look at this. The 618 lines up almost perfectly to the tick to that value area high. So funny enough that those levels do match. But if you are a Fibonacci trader, you're basically looking at the same exact level as you would be if you were a volume profile trader. This would be the sell zone between the 50% fib and the 618 fib. So anywhere from 20.2 to 20.6 would be your main target / sell zone. Okay. Now, bearishly, if we do continue to fall, let me grab my profile again. It has to load here. So if we look at the profile, this is the old profile from the entire bull market. If we start to lose this 17.8, you really don't have a whole lot of value below you. You have a couple of nodes, one node right here around 13.4, and then another node right here around 15.8. So those would be the two key areas that you would look for support if we do finally start to lose the buy pressure on the bottom of this value node around 18,000. Okay. All right, moving on to Ethereum here. Let's grab our profile, let it load here, and we can look at some key levels. So using that impulse that we talked about on Ethereum, you can see that this was hitting the 382. We talked about that last week, and you had kind of a sell node right there, a resistance node, if you will, and we were able to fail that and push back down towards this buy pressure around that 1,000 to 880 area, and that buy pressure was holding beautifully the first time it tested it. It is kind of holding on the second test here, but you're not getting a buy up from that level. So if we look at it this time, or let's say last time you had a very strong buy pressure that pushed you out of that zone. This time, not so much. You are reacting bullishly to that zone, but you are not pushing away from it. So this tells us that the buyers are losing steam and the sellers want to push this lower. So if we do start to hold value below this 1,025 or the 1,000 area, you're most likely going to retest this lower wick zone, kind of around that 900 to 800 buy zone, or that LVN zone, if you will. But this does not look very good for the buyers. If we go down to a lower time frame, we can actually look at where the value is being found, and we can see that we are finding some buyer value kind of around this area here, around 10,040, but then we have a little bit of resistance coming in around that 1060. And if we look at the 200 EMA on the 30-minute, which is a really good gauge of your midterm kind of price action, we are downtrending pretty heavily. And if you zoom out here, you can see the value is just continuing to lose value or consolidate. You're not really gaining value. You have very small gains in value, like we see this little gain right here, but this is inside of an accumulation, so it's not extremely bullish until you start to hold value above that range. Okay, so if this wanted to be very bullish, you would have to hold value basically above all of these days here of the accumulation. So we would have to hold value above basically 1,080. And then we have a little bit of resistance around 1,090. So hold value above that, then your trend should start to shift bullishly. But until it does that, this is just an accumulation, and it's leaning slightly bearish because of that very nasty impulse that we saw the last couple of weeks. Okay. So moving forward on Ethereum, like we said, you want to hold value above this range. So anywhere around 1,090. If it does start to do that, then you want to look for that 382 target around 1,200 to 1,300. If it starts to hold value below the accumulation, it's looking for another leg down, which most likely it will sweep this low and grab any of that liquidity that is below that level. If you are if you're longing somewhere around this range, you have to think about where are they putting their stop losses. The majority of people are either putting their stop losses below this local low, or they're most likely putting it below the previous low, which would provide a lot of liquidity down here if the big traders wanted to grab some stop losses. Okay, so most likely if you lose this recent low, you're going to sweep and grab that other low into that 850 to 800 area. Okay, one last thing to look at here before we call it a video would be the dollar. Let's take a look at how the currencies are reacting. You had a lot of bearish currency economic prints last week, but it didn't seem like the dollar reacted very bearishly to those numbers. The dollar still looks like it's ready to rip higher. You kind of have that textbook cup and handle here. You can see that cup, and then there's the handle there. So if we break out of that handle high around 106, most likely going to start pushing towards that 110 level, which would be a massive high if we go back on the monthly levels. You can see we're breaking into basically a 10 to 20 year high here. But looking at how the euro is reacting, the euro is only 4 cents above $1 here, and the yen is also losing value. So it's not only the dollar strength, it's the other currencies that the dollar competes against getting weaker. Okay, so the euro is getting weaker and the yen is getting weaker. I'm not going to go over it in this video because it would take too long, but you guys should definitely check out what is going on in the Japanese bond market. They are basically at a point where they have to constantly print money to buy up their bonds because their bond yields are breaking their peg. They're trying to peg those yields to 0.25%. And if you guys look at those yields, it is getting away from that peg, which is causing a lot of fear in their market. So definitely check that out after this video. Take a look at the Japanese inflation, take a look at the Japanese bond market and the Japanese 10-year bond yield. Okay. That'll be very interesting for you guys if you trade currencies. But all right, guys, that is it. Hopefully you guys enjoy your long weekend, enjoy your holiday. I will be streaming from Tuesday to Friday at 9:30 in the morning, so make sure to stop by if you guys want to check out some ES live trading. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys on Tuesday. See you later.